Hello. I am continuing my endeavor to spread the word about cyclical vomiting syndrome, often misdiagnosed as cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. I am not someone who uses marijuana or anything, and I have it. So whatever that means, but they are two different things. And so I wanted to read a little bit out of my book that I am currently sending via Amazon Prime to anyone who has this disease, or emergency rooms for people who are afflicted with this disease. So I wanted to read the chapter of my diagnosis. I always thought I was more prone to the stomach flu than others. I spent decades with this disease, not really understanding I had a condition and wasn't just more susceptible to the stomach flu or food poisoning. There is no cure for this disease and no definitive cause, although it is being studied. Often children who suffer from migraines will come down with this disease. So abdominal migraines, head migraines. About 3 out of every 100,000 children will come down with cyclical vomiting syndrome, or what some refer to as abdominal migraines. Females are slightly more prone to get this disease, and while all races have been afflicted, it does seem to affect Caucasians the most. Some studies say that chronic marijuana use can cause the symptoms associated with cyclical vomiting syndrome. While the symptoms are very similar, chronic marijuana use can cause a condition known as cannabinoid hyperemesis. A sufferer such as myself, who has spent years being a frequent visitor to the emergency room, can tell you that this comparison is something I'm fairly sensitive about. This disease is just now getting recognized by the public and by the medical community. Before, when I went into the emergency room, I would first be labeled as what medical professionals refer to as a drug seeker. A drug seeker is someone who goes to the emergency room with the intention of tricking doctors into prescribing pain medication and who doesn't necessarily suffer from a medical condition. Because I was always initially screened as a drug seeker, it's fairly important to me that I don't use or be associated with marijuana or any other street drugs. There's a lot of information about what that differentiates between cannabis hyperemesis and my condition of cyclic vomiting syndrome. Now, I found out that there are people that actually try to treat their CVS at home because they're so scared of being labeled that drug seeker, or they've gotten red flagged. Again, I don't have a solution to that. I do know for a fact, I know a lot of medical professionals that there are drug seekers. I've known people who've been flagged that I could tell I had that same bias, that I thought they were drug seekers. So I don't have a solution. I just know that I'm not a drug seeker when I go in. I don't even ask for pain meds. I kind of just deal with it. So I don't have a solution to that problem, but I just know that it does happen. And I know that there are people that are scared to go into the emergency room, and they try to treat it at home, and then they get even more sick, or in some cases, they've even died. So that, more than anything, is why I did this, why I'm doing this. Dysfunctional mitochondria have been suggested as a cause of the disease. The mitochondria are located in every cell of the body except the red blood cells. Because mitochondria play a large role in energy production in the body, I refer to them as the car battery in our body's car. In order to get the human body, to properly turn over, the battery needs to be fully charged. Mitochondrial disease is its own illness. Symptoms of this disease include poor growth, loss of muscle coordination, muscle weakness, visual problems, hearing problems, learning disabilities, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, gastrointestinal disorders, respiratory disorders, neurological problems, atomic dysfunction, and dementia. Currently, there is no cure for mitochondrial disease, although there is a test for it. There is no test for cyclical vomiting syndrome. Though there are no current medications for cyclical vomiting syndrome, nutrients like CoQ10 and L-carnitine that both aid in the ATP energy production in the cells have been used with success. That's what I did. Other migraine medications such as sumatriptan, which I don't take currently, have shown to ease the severity of the symptoms. There has even been a recent development of nasal supratriptan to aid patients experiencing an episode. Often, when I would visit an emergency room, most of the attending medical professionals had never experienced a symptomatic cyclical vomiting syndrome patient. Most people probably wouldn't know this, but a patient experiencing a CVS episode can best be treated by receiving intravenous IV medications such as Zofran or Reglan, which help reduce symptoms of nausea and vomiting, and IV fluids, which can help with rehydration. When I go into the emergency room, I usually just say, I want Benadryl and Zofran and an IV, and they just do it. I don't know why I get... It's clearly on my chart. I have a clear diagnosis, and it's clear. I'm clearly not a drug seeker. I somehow convince them there's something that I do that convinces them that I'm not a drug seeker, that other people don't do. And they pretty much just hook me up to the IV, and then they ask me what I want. I've had very good treatment. I've had very good experiences in the emergency room. The last time I was in the emergency room, I was treated very, very well. I know that's not the case for everyone, and everybody has their own experiences, and this is a horrific disease. And I went from being someone who just had it to someone who, got to know what it's like to not have it all the time. So I do have that optimism bias from it. I was just used to it. Let's see. Occasionally, if I managed to get to the hospital before I reached the point of dehydration, I'd be given an injection to stop the vomiting. Usually, though, I would already be dehydrated upon arrival and need IV fluids plus a drug cocktail to try and stop the vomiting. It would usually take hours, but the vomiting episodes would cease eventually. I used to come down with an episode about 3 to 4 times per year, and when having an episode, I would vomit approximately 6 times per hour for up to 10 days. It wasn't fun. Now that I'm on nutrient therapy and I take coenzyme Q10, L-carnitine, and creatine, and exercise treatment, which I was doing running. I'm not good at running, not very fast. I've never been very fast or very good at it. I've recently switched to yoga. I'm thinking that I'm going to be doing kind of an alternate, and it is getting spring, so that means there's more marathons, running type things that I can partake in. So I might just stick to the yoga and then join up on those runs. As just kind of, I do like the fact that we live in a world where there are a lot of runs that I can do, like 5Ks, different things like that I can do my own training for, that I can get on a treadmill for and do that. It helps me a lot. And exercise treatment, I've only had 1 episode in the last 4 years. When I'm not symptomatic or in recovery, which leaves me bedridden for days, my life is fairly normal. That's why this disease is referred to as an invisible illness. When I first got diagnosed, people are like, you're sick? And then they start thinking, oh yeah, you missed a lot of days. And it was just like, I just didn't really tell people. I'd be gone for 10 days. I'd be like, oh, I was sick. But it's like when you have an illness and you don't even know what the name of it is, and people just give you this quizzical, confused look when you tell them that you were sick for 10 days. You just kind of really don't talk about it. That's why this disease is referred to as an invisible illness. It's so invisible that even I didn't see any huge differences between myself and other healthy individuals. Perhaps I also suffered from optimism bias in that I wanted to be a healthy, happy individual so much. I remember when I was 22, I was in my peak of health. I was, exercising, very fit physique. And then I got into, I was in the best shape of my life. And I was eating my trigger foods at this time. And I remember I was just in the best shape of my life, best everything. And then I broke my neck in a car accident and I lost like 20 pounds because when I was on the neurological floor, they put me on morphine, which opioids do have some sort of relationship with CVS. And when they took me off of it, I went into an episode. And the doctors and nurses, they'd never, that was a long time ago. I won't say exactly how long ago, but they didn't, there was no CVS at that point. or no diagnosis. They had never seen it before. But there was a case where you have the hyperemesis that's caused from having brain trauma. And so, of course, that's what they thought. I was on the neurological floor. There were neurological doctors and nurses. And so they looked at it for that. And I didn't even know. I kind of was like, why are they all looking at me? They were like looking in the eyes with their flashlights and stuff like that. Because I was like, I do this all the time, because I was so used to it at this point, but they'd never seen it before. This is kind of like an interesting thing. However, I do see it now. I'm doing something about it. I've never been healthier nor been happier. I remember when I finally got to a gastroenterologist and was officially diagnosed with cyclical vomiting syndrome. My doctor told me there was no cure and really nothing he could do to help me. Honestly, that diagnosis was all I needed. I heard the words and I was off. It really was. It was a magical moment. I made up names for my illness because it didn't have a name. I called it my Fiona disease, my evil monkey flew from hell. And then it actually had a name. And I was like a name from a doctor, and there's science behind it that I can read. And he was very, adamant that he couldn't do anything to help me because he was obviously someone that wants to help people. And I was like, you did. I haven't had a name, hadn't had a syndrome. I thought I had food poisoning or something for years. I was like, so you helped me. I'm still reeling in happiness knowing that I have a condition and not a weakened immune system. Once I learn how to control my symptoms, although I will likely be always be chronically ill, I learned how to live better with chronic illness. It really is an answered prayer. For years, I lived from goal to goal, which I did, as I thought I didn't have much of a healthy future. I just, when you can't really see that far ahead because you have something going on, I just kind of was like, oh, I'd like to try this, or oh, I'd like to try that. And, there's a lot of people that say that that's the way you should do it. I have this goal. I want to see this. I want to do that. I want to travel here. I want to do that. Instead of having like a big dream for where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years. And I do have a dream now. I never had one before. And that's pretty amazing. I never had a dream or goals, and I kind of let the wind just kind of blow me around. And I still do that to some extent because that's, the habit I formed. But I actually get to what I call be a salt of the earth. Like, I really think that I could do some sort of I worked a lot with behaviorally impaired youth and at-risk youth, and I was a social worker and an educator and stuff like that. So not now, I'm a writer with this condition, and this is what I'm doing right now is I'm talking about living with this condition. And I'm going to keep trying to live better with chronic illness and just do better. And that's where that terminology comes in. I never had I was shackled with ill health, it's like those shackles were removed. It was like freedom. I never even conceived of having a dream. So now I have one. So that's really cool. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm kind of too old now to, really be sad if I don't get what I want out of life. I got good health. What else could you want? Dreams are gifts from God. I'm so thankful every day that I get to see a future ahead of me now that's not full of emergency room visits and saline tubes. That's why I wrote this book. I want to help you help yourself. I want to help you learn how to live better with chronic illness. I put some sources in there, and I will talk about my religion next. My religion is a big part of it. And so, I do want to talk about that. So if you can't wait, you can go on Amazon and find my book, Tammy Marshall, or you can contact me on here and I'll send you a link. Please donate to the CVSA organization. If you are feeling like donating to something and raising awareness, there's nothing that really does need more awareness in there's lots of things that need to be brought awareness, but there's a lot of children that are coming down with it there, and that's what I'm doing, is I'm helping people one by one who are coming down with it. I'm only one person. I can only do so much. Single mom now. I don't have a lot of resources. I got a little distracted. I got some things on my plate. But there's a lot of good that you can do. So anyway, hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, you can look for my book on Amazon, or you can email me here on my blog and I'll tell you where you can buy it. I lowered the price. This is my passion project. I started this when I first got diagnosed, and then I found out people were coming down with it and then just getting treated horrible by medical professionals, and they were just giving up. And I've been there. And so I'm trying to just bring awareness by this. And I literally just started a blog just because I was like, well, I can write, I started writing professionally when I was 15. I was like, so I can be funny. I can be sarcastic, both the good and bad in that. And anyway, so, that's, I hope I can maybe do something. If nothing else, I do help people one by one that are thinking about giving up, and then trying to raise awareness by sending my material, this wonderful book of laughs, to emergency rooms. Maybe they can just know it's something with a name, or they've heard about it and they can treat it. And maybe, some will stop people trying to treat their symptoms at home because they're scared to go to the emergency room. We can't do that. As somebody that's had this as long as I've had, and I've talked to people that have way worse than I do. There's a lot you can do a lot worse if you go more than like 2 days having these symptoms. Do a lot worse things to your body. So we have to raise awareness and start to feel comfortable at least going to the emergency rooms. That's, a lot of people are like, what are you trying to do? And it's like, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to figure out what causes it or treat it. A scientist has to do that. I'm trying to just bring awareness to it, so that I stop hearing about people dying because they're too sick to go to the emergency room. So yes, this is a cause and a passion project, and I'll keep doing it. Have a good day.